Oftentimes, when it comes to USC football, the more hate you hear from other fan bases, the more you know that USC is closer to being back. And this offseason, we really have heard that hate. Granted, the Trojans in the past 2 years have not been promising on the field, but behind the scenes, diehard USC fans know that big moves are being made, and the future is bright. With that being said, I thought today would be a good time to look at the worst USC football takes on the internet and see whether those takes are justified or just hate. The first take that we're going to look at is from Andy and Ari over at On3, who have a video on YouTube where they bash USC for 13 minutes straight.
But it's right in front of your face. Oregon, California talent, harder schedule, different time zone, everything is less advantageous than the 10 schools that we had on the list. It's not that difficult.
So Andy's points are that USC is not a top 10 job because Oregon is recruiting the West as well. California talent isn't as good as SEC talent, the Big Ten schedule, and that USC is in a different time zone. Looking at the first point, he claims that Oregon recruiting the West well will hurt USC, but every team on his top jobs list is located in the same general area, meaning they all have to compete with not just one, but around 20 powerhouse schools for every recruit. Andy also clearly hasn't seen the 2026 recruiting cycle, where both USC and Oregon have top 10 classes, proving USC and Oregon can simultaneously recruit the area well. He then claims that California talent isn't as good as SEC talent. If that's the case, why did Alabama go into California last cycle and take 7 players from the state, which is 1/3 of their entire class? Why do they praise Oregon, who mostly targets California players? And why does the state of California have the 3rd most players in the NFL? Pete Carroll focused majority of his recruiting in California and was able to win national championships. Next, he says that the Big Ten schedule makes USC a worse job. If that's the case, why does every school on his list have a Big Ten or SEC schedule outside of Notre Dame? And finally, he says that USC is in a different time zone, but I really don't see why that matters. Also, these two have Oklahoma and Penn State on their list, even after Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma for USC, and Danton Lynn would rather stay at USC than leave for his alma mater Penn State. And if you thought that Andy and Ari were done with their takes, they aren't, and will keep making claims later in the video.
If you think it's a top 10 job, then give me your honest appraisal of Lincoln Riley's performance in it. Because you can't say it's a top 10 job without saying he's failed. If you think he's failed, then I'm fine with you saying it's a top 10 job. If you think he hasn't failed, then it's not a top 10 job.
It might not even be a top 20
Because at a
job.
top 10 job, what he's done would not be acceptable.
Now, Ari shifts the blame to Lincoln Riley and says that if you think USC is a top 10 job, then that means Lincoln Riley has failed. First off, he has to realize what Lincoln Riley inherited. Clay Helton passed on a team that had no structure, no culture, and many players who did not perform up to the USC standard. The rebuilding process that Lincoln Riley had to take should take longer than at Oregon or at LSU, but that doesn't mean that USC isn't one of the most unstoppable programs in college football when at full strength. I'm also not saying that Lincoln Riley has been perfect, because he has made some mistakes, but to say that he has failed is far from the truth. Also, this guy has LSU on his list, when Brian Kelly took over a program that had just won a national championship and hasn't done anything more than Lincoln Riley. And then his buddy adds in at the end, claiming that USC is not even a top 20 job. These two just clearly hate SC.
LSU similar to USC because they had the
hired at
best
the same
year.
time, and they
the
had their
first
best
year.
year in the first year, and they've gotten progressively worse. Now, LSU has also had a Heisman. Well, USC had. I mean, they're kind of virtually the same. They both had Heisman
They are
winners.
the
They both
same.
had really awesome
Yep.
offenses with bad defenses.
And finally, these two realize their hypocrisy, but aren't done with their bad takes.
This is everybody. Your list is so biased. Your list is completely subjective. Sherlock, it's a list.
I also want to know.
Of course, it's subjective.
Like, here's the thing. There are certain jobs on my list that I think I would rather have the USC job over because of who I am and where I'd want to live.
Because we're
And finally, we have Andy on the left, saying that these lists are subjective, which according to Google means that it is based on or influenced by personal feelings, taste, or opinions. But Ari on the right says that he would rather be the coach at SC over some of these other teams because of who he is. So is the list subjective or not? Next, we're going to look at some more takes on Twitter. But before we continue, if you like this series, make sure to tag me in any tweets that you want to see in the next video. Paradise CFB, who is a Minnesota fan, says that USC should be removed from the Big Ten because they will never be good in their conference. So this past year, USC placed number 2 nationally and first in the Big Ten in the Directors' Cup, which is an award given to the college with the best athletics. Minnesota finished 48th nationally and 12th in the Big Ten. USC also has a winning record against every single Big Ten team in football and is 6-2-1 all time versus the Gophers. This is one of the worst takes I've heard, and I hope that this guy wasn't serious. Next up, we have Branders, who seems to have a lot to say about USC. He says that USC paid $15 million for the second best tight end in the class and compares USC to Texas Tech. First off, Mark Bowman is the number 1 tight end according to both On3 and 24/7 Sports. And I have no idea where he got $15 million from, which is more money than both Lincoln Riley and Dan Lanning make, by the way. Branders also says that USC is Texas Tech without a set of nuts, which is funny because Oregon has been compared to Tech numerous times because they like to overspend for high school kids, and both programs have never won a national championship. Branders later says that he must never speak of USC again, which is ironic because he tweets about USC every single day. That's it for this video though, but if you want to see more of Branders' tweets and more bad takes, make sure to tune into the next video.